Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking about episode 20 of Arrow called Home Invasion. First, a quick apology for this review coming out so late. Short version, I was sick and then I kind of went out of town for a few days. So, life happens. Anyway, overall, I thought this was an okay episode of the show, but there's just some really, really weak elements going on that undermine the really strong elements of the episode. But anyway, let's get right into it. And the big thing to talk about this episode is, once again, the guest star that we have. Now, whatever criticisms you want to level at the show, you can't deny they've done a really nice job of bringing in actors for major roles and supporting roles and guest stars that have some pretty serious geek cred. And this time around, we are treated to J. August Richards, best known for being Gunn over on Angel. Great character, loved Gunn, loved Richards in the role. Angel was a fantastic show. I absolutely loved it. So I was really happy to hear that he was going to be on the show, and here he is playing a real flip from his previous character of Gunn in the role of the assassin Mr. Black. Now, from what I've read online, when this episode was originally being conceptualized, they wanted to use a villain who goes by the name of Automatopoeia, who was created by Kevin Smith, yeah, that Kevin Smith, the movie director guy, during his run on the Green Arrow comics. Kevin Smith has written Green Arrow comics. He's a very big Green Arrow fan, and I've actually read that story. It's quite good. And for those of you who are wondering, automatopoeia is it's a strange word, but basically it means the word for a sound. Like, this was a stick. The sound it would make if I broke it in half would be written as crack. Or, ouch is the sound for pain and so on. Or, wham, biff, and all that. If you were, well, you probably know where that comes from. And so, yeah, only speaking in those words was Automatopoeia's shtick. He was a reasonably interesting character, but they ultimately decided not to go with him. And I have to say, I'm kind of happy about that. One, Automatopoeia is a character that I think it's worth taking the time to figure out how to do him correctly. And given that Mr. Black ends up dead in this episode, well, why waste a good villain on that? I mean, seriously, nobody's going to sit around and cry about them having killed off Firefly or anything like that. So, anyway. Mr. Black as a character. Here's one of the weaker elements of this episode. And this is really no knock on Richard's performance. He does a great job with what he's given, just like all the guest stars have had. But it's just what he's given as a character is really, really thin. You know what Mr. Black really reminded me of is when I saw the movie Gone in 60 Seconds. And I only saw that movie because I won a free ticket in a radio station contest. Anyway, I don't even remember the name of the villain in Gone in 60 Seconds, but there's a couple of scenes where we see the villain dicking around with carpentry and making a table, and he has this moment where he rambles on about wood is a substance of strength and character, and then he's back to trying to kill Nicolas Cage, and I really hate stuff like that because it's basically feels to me like the writers say, okay, we need to give this character, this villain, it's almost usually a villain, some kind of character trait so that he's just not a cookie-cutter villain. And then they come up with some quirk to give the villain, show it one or two times, and then call it a day. I'm sorry. As much respect as I have for the Arrow writers, that's laziness, alright? If you're going to make somebody a villain, I mean, granted, this is a one-shot villain, so they don't really need to do too much with him, and they don't have the screen time to do a lot with him. But still, find a better way to do than that. It just seems so lazy. And of course, Mr. Black's thing is that he reads the emotions of and I read an interview with Richards before I did this review, where he talks about Mr. Black as a character, and he says, Mr. Black doesn't really relate to people on an emotional level, but He's really good at picking up the emotions of rooms and buildings and things like that. And we do see this. We see him. He goes into the apartment of the family the parents that he kills. Looks around and kind of makes a comment about like, oh, this seems like it's a really nice and happy home. He makes some sort of a comment about the Queen Mansion. And that's all well and good, but okay, so what? I mean, really, what does this add to him as a character? Not a whole lot, if you ask me. And there's also the problem that Mr. Black is kind of dumb. Alright, first of all, when he goes into the apartment and kills the parents, did you notice he's not even wearing gloves? And this is a guy who's obsessed with people seeing his face and making sure that there are no witnesses who knows it's him. Okay, smart guy, then why don't you freaking wear gloves when you're out committing a murder? I mean, maybe he's burned off his fingerprints or something, but you know what? You can still leave behind DNA. And it's even worse when he goes to kill the guy that hired him. He goes and does this in a police station. I'm pretty sure in a police station they have things like security cameras. I mean, seriously, you're worried about hiding your face, and you just showed it to a whole bunch of cops, and it's probably on video? Oh, God almighty. But then again, this is television. Things like security cameras and competent crime scene investigators only exist whenever it's convenient for the plot. And speaking of completely and utterly incompetent crime scene investigators, Oliver's shtick about how it was Mr. Whatever, the bodyguard guy who ultimately killed Black. Okay, unless I missed something, wasn't that the guy that Black killed up on the staircase? So, I mean, how in the world is this supposed to wash? Seeing that the guy was killed on the staircase, and Black was killed in a completely different room. And, why wouldn't the dead guy's fingerprints, the bodyguard guy's fingerprints, be on the poker? I mean, granted, I guess you could say Oliver tampered with the crime scene in such a way that he could do it. He probably had time before the cops showed up. But still, I mean, just me. And my knowledge of forensics basically comes from what I've learned from watching, like, true TV, forensic files and all this other stuff. If even I can spot a bunch of stuff that would completely be destroyed by somebody who has actual training in crime scene, investigation. Who are you? Who? Sorry, I happen to really like The Who. But anyway, I mean, well, I've said all I can really say about that, and I'm pretty sure that's not the first time I've ranted about that on these reviews. And I'm not even going to go into what complete and utter BS it is. Like, oh, let me squeeze your wrist, and oh yeah, now you're going to die in 15 seconds. You know what, dude? If you can do that, why are you going around shooting people? Why don't you just sort of come with a BS reason to come over and give them an overly friendly handshake and then walk away? Or you know what? Just sneak into their house and grab their hand while they're sleeping. Yeah, they'll wake up, but they'll be dead in 15 seconds anyway. What are they going to do about it? Yeah. Okay. So, let's talk about the kid that survives Mr. Black's attack. He has no real characterization. He's entirely a plot device that exists to give Tommy a moment of kindness, which is sort of a contrast to all the moments he's been getting lately where he's been kind of a dick. And, of course, there's all the nonsense of Laurel is like, I'm assigning myself as his legal guardian. Look, lady, look, Arrow writers. Again, what I know about the law mostly comes from old episodes of Law and Order, but even I can say that is complete and utter BS. I mean, sure, Laurel says she's going to get a judge to be okay with it. Well, okay, but I don't think it works that way. But again, the law only works however it's convenient on this show. I mean, I'm sorry. This is really one of the big criticisms I do have of this show. And I suppose maybe I'm being a little bit unfair, because superhero comics in general, so much stuff on them really, basically reality only works the way it does here in the real world in superhero comics when it's convenient for it to. Otherwise, so again, maybe I'm being a little too hard on the show for going on down that road, but remember, one of the main things about the Arrow universe is it's supposed to be a quote-unquote realistic universe. And I think they're just asking me to hand wave a little too much. Let's see. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and apparently despite all this stuff that's going on, nobody ever seems to breathe a word about getting this kid some therapy. I guess they're just going to let his grandparents deal with that when they get back, once they get back from Australia. I mean, it's certainly not as if Oliver or Tommy or any of the other people on the show who've been through horribly traumatic experiences seem to go to therapists. So, maybe in Starling City, seeing a shrink is considered something that makes you a wuss. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, I will give the show and us a few bonus points for Quentin referring to Thea and Roy as the Wonder Twins. All right, I grew up on Super Friends, and as dorky as the Wonder Twins were, they were a part of the show, and they do have a little place in my heart. And as long as we're on that road, let's talk about Thea and Roy. The relationship between them apparently has grown surprisingly strong. I mean, Thea even said, this means the world to you, and you mean the world to me. Geez, does Oliver even know these two are dating? And again, he's had other things on his mind. So, alright, again, Roy, I like how Roy even points out, that Quentin really did seem to go through an awful lot of trouble to get back a police radio. Now, granted, you don't want crooks listening in into police conversations, but you can buy police scanners, off the internet, and even in some stores. I've even heard you can listen to police radios on the internet. And I mean, just look at what happened in Boston recently. People were asking people not to tweet the locations of police officers during that manhunt. So where a police officer is at any given time, for somebody who really wants to know, probably not that difficult to figure out. Now, granted, Roy's just a street kid, so this is about as good as he's going to be able to do. But still, it doesn't really explain why Quentin's going to go through this much bother, or why he doesn't seem to, consider that. I mean, isn't Roy on some kind of parole or something? I mean, has that been mentioned? You'd think that, given all the stuff he's done, he probably would be. Whatever. But anyway, it's probably Roy's destiny in this universe to end up becoming Speedy anyway, so we'll see. How much you want to bet that before the end of this season, one or two more people are in on Oliver's secret, huh? Okay, so let's see. Well, I suppose it's time to get into talking about Tommy a little bit more. And again, I have to level the criticism at the show of why doesn't Tommy just say to Oliver, what in the world happened to you on this island? Because, the guy I used to know didn't go around snapping people's necks and shooting them with arrows. What happened to you, dude? I mean, we haven't really seen what's been going on with Tommy and his dad, but has Tommy pressed his dad for a few more details on how he learned to become a super badass killing machine? It's so Dad, is this the first time you've ever gone all Rambo on some people and killed them in just seconds? I mean, you'd think that would be something that would come up in conversation now that Tommy's working for his dad. And let's not even get into the whole BS thing with him breaking up with Laurel and him going she would choose you if she knew. Wait a minute. I mean, was it really that heavily implied that Laurel may have had a bit of a thing for the vigilante? I mean, I suppose there might have been something there, but really, you think, Tommy, that Laurel would, if she knew the truth, dump you and run off to go be with Oliver? You really think that little of her? Man, Tommy, I mean, that's your girlfriend and somebody who's been your friend just as long as Oliver has. And unlike Oliver, Laurel hasn't killed anybody. She did, however, show herself to be surprised to have learned from her previous mistakes and has purchased herself a nice shotgun. So, points to Laurel on that one. But anyway, again, Tommy is just being a complete and utter moron here. And, okay, characters making stupid decisions is a common thing in drama because, people here in the real world, myself included, just like everybody else I know, sometimes goes out and makes incredibly stupid decisions. But there's a difference between a stupid decision and just generally being stupid. Leaving behind all rational human behavior. Humans do not rationally do these things. Even irrationally, they don't do these things. Seriously, Tommy. Okay, I've made my point. Okay, another thing I will give the show is we did get to see a nice and brief little scene between Laurel and Moira. And that's not something I think we've seen very much of in this show. And it's really a shame because the two characters do play off each other quite well. So, I would definitely like to see more of that. Oh yeah, there was one more thing that I wanted to say about Mr. Black. Okay, remember when he's interrogating the bodyguard after having shot him? He's like, tell me where the kid is. I don't want to have to chase after him. Okay, dude, you just shot this guy, and he almost certainly knows either he's going to die from his wounds or you're in a few seconds going to kill him. I seriously doubt he cares all that much if he inconveniences you. Gosh, I mean, come on, writers. You had to have been able to come up with something better than that. Let me see. Just looking over my notes. Not a whole lot to say about that. Oh yeah, I did actually want to say one more thing about Thea and Roy. That scene with Quentin when he goes and shows them the body of number 26. First of all, Quentin, what the heck, man, with that arrow and stuff? I mean, dude, that's seriously creepy. You need a hobby or something. But I do like that they take the time to emphasize that what Oliver does is seriously brutal stuff. This is not a side of Oliver that is big on compassion. Now, granted, he's tempered this, but let's keep in mind what it is he's doing. Oliver is a guy who's going around and killing people. He's killed over a dozen people. And frankly, that body count seems pretty darn low given what we've seen on this show so far. Oh, yeah, I kind of might want to talk about Oliver and Dig and what's going on with them in Deadshot, huh? Okay, well, here we have a little bit of better stuff. Okay, first of all, I like that the agent's code name was Harbinger. Apparently her real name, I forget what it is. Apparently that's the real name of the character of Harbinger from the comics. I don't really expect the two of those characters to ever become alike in any way, shape, or form. Harbinger in the comics, long story short, is sort of a cosmic character. So this is probably just meant as a little bit of a treat for the fans out there. And I certainly do appreciate that. I really enjoy those little things. But anyway, so we get to see Dig get his rematch with Deadshot, and he loses. And the only reason Deadshot doesn't kill him is he says, like, nobody's paying me to. Okay, Deadshot, was somebody paying you to kill those government agents? And Dig's brother was just was just a bodyguard. So wasn't he just really collateral damage when you killed somebody else? I mean, was it specified, I want this guy and his bodyguard dead? I mean, that just doesn't really make sense. And also, Dig has proven himself to get to the point where he can find you and engage you in hand-to-hand combat. You killed his brother, so he's probably going to try again. Why don't you just freaking save yourself some trouble in the future and just kill the dude? I mean, nobody's paying me to do this is a weak justification. Call this advertising. Call this don't mess with Deadshot's, spending or whatever you want to call it. Again, it's just one of those things that makes no damn sense at all. This is a prime example of, stupid decision making. The only reason Diggs survives that thing is because he's a main character. Okay, and then we get to see Dig clashing with Oliver over this. Now, granted, Dig does have a genuine reason to be pissed at Oliver. Oliver promised him that he would be there. Oliver made the big thing. It was like, let's cross this name off, Floyd Lawton's name, off of your list. And then he goes off to chase down some random bad guy of the week. Okay, Oliver, you're a billionaire. If you want to go and find this guy in China and take him down there, I'm pretty sure you can. And also, you have the resources. You have Dig, you have Felicity. If you need to create a believable alibi as to, you being somewhere in Starling City while the Starling City vigilante goes to China and takes this guy out, cool. In fact, you don't even have to kill that guy with arrows. Just, push him off a building or something. You don't have to say, Starling City vigilante went to China and killed this guy. Also, what exactly is stopping you, Mr. Billionaire, from going to Europe and stopping Deadshot there? I mean, again, Oliver Queen can probably either create a phony alibi that puts him in the United States or come up with a convincing reason to go to Europe and happen to be there while the vigilante is doing something, or he just doesn't have to kill Deadshot in a way that points out that it was the vigilante that did it. And while Dick does have a reason to be pissed at Oliver, dude, it's not his job to fight your war. This is a choice that Oliver made. If you want to kill Deadshot so bad, go out and do it yourself. Oh wait, you tried and you failed. So, yeah. Have you picked up that I'm not really that thrilled with this episode? And that's the great thing that really frustrates me more than anything, is that I know this show can be so much better. And I've seen so many examples of this show being so much better. So when they get all this stuff where I have to spend so much time either just turning off my brain or hand waving stuff for what happens to make any degree of sense, I feel like the writers are just talking down to me as an audience member, or treating me like I'm dumb. And frankly, the show and the viewing audience deserves better. Anyway, folks, I think I've rambled and ranted enough, so we're going to call that here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.